through our first budget process in 2019, we did have a presentation from staff with regard to all of the buildings and the highlights. The other thing, I know that this is in the presentation, but just a really big reminder that these reports and these numbers do not address any accessibility issues that these buildings do have. So that's an important factor that we have to keep in mind when we're looking at these. And again, that these numbers are not set in stone and hard and fast because things change. So there may be some deficiencies that were not picked up through the engineering that may come to light throughout the year. So we have to have a process in place as we move forward with our facilities. And we do have a number of facilities. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. Dent.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. I will just start the presentation here. So yes, we are here to talk about the building condition assessment reports that were prepared by Tulloch Engineering. We did have meetings with some of the senior management team to review in detail these reports. And additional items that may not have been included in these reports initially will be added as they are identified over the next number of months and years. Management is working to identify those projects which may be dealt with through the operating budget under repairs and maintenance over the next 3 to 5 years. Capital items will be added to our 5-year capital forecast, and the asset management plan will be updated to include these current building condition indexes in our asset database. And as Ms. Scott previously mentioned, these reports do not address any accessibility issues with any of our facilities. We're not here today to look for approval in principle for anything. There are dollars attached to these reports and to these projects that need to be completed. We are looking for a commitment from council. There are a lot of areas that need a lot of attention in this municipality, and we need to focus on our core services and our core facilities. And that's what we're looking for direction from council today, is with respect to these areas. As everyone is aware, the old courthouse, the old public works garage building, past failure to commit to maintaining our facilities has led to the situation we're now faced with this facility. It is unfit, is unsafe for people to work in. It's an eyesore and it contravenes our own property standards bylaw. So now we're at the point where we need to spend an estimated $250,000 to $300,000 to demolish that building and lose that facility and that service in town. So we have gone through and prioritized what we feel to be our top 5 facilities. Not to say that they're not all important, but these are kind of our top 5: Town Hall, the Arena, the Public Works Complex, the Marina, and the Tourist Information Center. So Town Hall requires a commitment to, and I have to build a new facility, but we require a commitment to a new facility. Whether that's a new build or some other configuration, we don't know at this point. The current building has no insulation in the ceiling. It has an ineffective HVAC system. And while there are some areas that may be made accessible, there are others, specifically the washrooms, that simply cannot. We do not have the space to make those accessible. If council is unwilling to commit to a new facility, then we must commit to spending funds required to make the current facility a safe and healthy workplace for the town employees. And we are looking for a resolution from council to direct staff to engage a consultant to put together some proposed options for this. The Arena Community Center, this is vital to our current residents, and it's vital to as a draw for families who may be considering a move to Blind River. It's also our current emergency center. As we saw last winter, was it last winter already? The one before, they're all kind of blurring together at this point, but where the hospital had to evacuate due to the snow loads on their roof, that is where everybody goes. If we were to lose this facility, we would also lose minor hockey, we would lose figure skating, we would lose the Beavers, we would lose all the tourism spin-off dollars, the list goes on. So we need to spend some money to do the necessary upgrades there. We did meet with the director of facilities and the Arena staff. They have already addressed a number of issues that they were able to do, and they've identified a long list of other ones that they will be able to start knocking off as part of their normal work plans over the next number of months. And also identified which ones will require outside contractors. So this plan will inform their work plans and their future year operating budget requests, and possibly some capital funding requests. The one thing that we do need to start planning for now and in the coming years is the roof repair, which is estimated to be about $2 million. So we really should be looking at starting to put funds away towards that project. The Public Works Complex, this is one of the newer facilities, so it only makes sense to try and keep it in good repair. Biggest issues to address here relate to the roofing and the doors, possible some mold issues due to the roof leaks and insulation in walls in the office areas. And there's some shelving and storage issues. Again, some of these may be addressed in-house through operating dollars, but some of them may require contractors, requiring larger dollars or capital investment. The marina, we've spent a lot of money down at the marina trying to bring that facility up to a better standard, for lack of a better term. We have been emphasizing tourism on our waterfront. It is in our official plan. It was part of our strategic and economic development plan. The museum and art gallery are now housed at this facility. There are some large dollar items that we're going to have to see in the capital budget in the coming years, dealing with the roof and windows and exterior wall cladding. Again, these will need to be prioritized, but do expect to see these in the 5-year capital forecast. And similar to the Arena Community Center complex, staff will be able to address some of the smaller issues. But again, there's some areas that they simply don't have the skills or the equipment to deal with, so we will be looking for outside contract help. Tourist Information Center, Council has already committed to upgrading this facility and preliminary work is underway. We have the tender estimates have come in at about $250,000. That may be low in the current situation. We may see some unexpected, or at this point, expected increases due to the cost of materials. And we will be coming to Council for a resolution to allocate additional funding from the facilities reserve once we know what that final number is going to look like. So those are our top 5 that staff will be focusing on. If Council wishes to change that direction, that is their prerogative. Just some of the other facilities, or we didn't just look at those, but some of the other ones that are also covered in here. The dog pound, we are looking at a possible new location or facility. This is under review by staff and our planner. The library does still have immediate issues with the HVAC. And there are other items that need to be prioritized, including mortar and caulking, the roof, the windows. At the fire hall, we are currently monitoring the situation at this facility. So at this point, any work there is kind of on hold until we see what's actually happening. But again, that might be something that we will see in a future capital request, is to repair repairs for the fire hall. The water treatment plant, there is still an issue with the stairs, and that will be scheduled. It's in Tulloch's plan for 2022, so that will be a 2022 budget request. There's ongoing work at the sewage treatment plant. Most of those items are detailed on Tulloch's work plan project list. Out at the cemetery, we do have a plan to deal with a number of those issues through the operating budget and some allocation from the cemetery interest reserve. And once we have some pricing for fencing, that will be part of a future budget request. And there is still an issue, at least I think it's the control building. That roof still needs some work, and it was deferred. Was originally planned a couple of years ago because of asbestos in the ceiling. So there will be a significant budget request to repair that roof. There's also a number of other decisions that council needs to make. What are we doing with the golf course? If we're keeping the golf course, we're going to have to invest some significant dollars in the facilities at the golf course. The senior center, are we going to keep the senior center? Again, there will be some significant dollars involved if we want to do that. The old museum site, this was reviewed during the planning project. It has been identified as highway commercial, and that is in high demand. And staff would be recommending to surplus those lands and divest ourselves of that piece of property. And although it's not a town-owned facility, we do have a contract with the school board to pay for expenses related to the Palace Theater and what are we going to be doing with that particular service. That was real quick. And I don't know if at this point, Ms. Scott has anything she wishes to add. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to you, Mayor Hagman.
And Ms. Scott, do you have anything to add before we get the comments from council?
Not at this time. I'll wait for questions from council.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, I do want to hear from you, and all opinions count. There's no such thing as a bad opinion. These are certainly opportunities for us to get our thoughts out on the floor. This is so important. Of course, we all know the time to do an asset management plan and the building inspection was 20 years ago. It's like planting trees. Should have been doing it each and every year, but here we are looking at $3,552,000 plus in repairs to these buildings over 10 years. If you take that on a year-to-year basis, we're looking at $355,270 over the span of these coming years and each and every year. So it's like our houses, you've got to spend money each and every year to keep your buildings up. Personally, I think we have far too many buildings. I'm recommending that we sell the senior center, the tourist information center, and the old museum, tear down the courthouse, and get rid of the pole barn. Those would be my recommendations. I'm saying this because we're just chasing after building after building after building in repairs. And it's not fair to the taxpayers of our community to have to keep supporting so many different buildings. So those would be my recommendations going forward to the rest of you. I kept under 5 minutes. I'd ask each person to keep under 5 minutes, or I will be telling you when the 5-minute mark is. As I say, we have another meeting tonight. So, so Deputy Mayor Summers, take it away.
Well, that was concise, Sally. I'm kind of looking at the kind of an overall picture of this. In the report for the museum, I was a little bit surprised at what shape that was in. I was led to believe, I thought, that it was in a lot worse shape than what it appears to be on this report. Not sure why we moved everything out of there. I still feel like it was in a better spot on the highway. So I don't know what happened there, how that managed to get by us, I guess, is what I'm wondering. In the travel center or visitor center, I'm not sure what we're calling it these days. Oh, in the museum report on page 7, article 3 there, it says something about the visitor center, and I think maybe it's a typo because it was in the museum report. But also in the actual travel center report, it said $151,750 over the next 10 years, and we're asking for $250,000 for monies for this year. So I'm just curious as to where that's coming from. The fire hall is not on our list of top 5, and I'm just wondering about that because my understanding is that the fire hall is sinking. I would have thought that maybe that would be pushed up to a little bit higher, maybe. I'm not exactly sure. The pole barn, I'm in agreement with you, Sally. I guess we could get rid of that one. Not too sure the senior center, we could have a look at that. I'm not for divesting of the travel center or the museum for that matter. That's a bit confusing on my part still. I think I'd have to think about that one. Sewage treatment plant, there was nothing on here. I believe that is another one that should be higher on our priority list at this point. But that's kind of where I sit right now. I was, like I said, I found the report a bit confusing. And I realize, like Ms. Scott said, the assessment accessibility issues were not as part of this, so that would make a difference as well. But let's just say the report was quite an eye-opener. So I'll let the floor go to the next person for now.
And Ms. Scott, do you want to respond after each counselor, or would you like to respond at the end?
I can respond after each. That might be easier for me to keep track of it. Just for the specifically the museum. So initially that was brought to light with the year that we had the heavy snowfall, and there was concerns with the roof and the impact of the snow at that time. And the engineer at that time, during the initial assessment of the building, declared that it was unsafe with the amount of snow load that was on the building. Further to that, there had been multiple reports submitted by the museum curator of the building not being fit. So there was a lot of issues with mice coming in the building. The one section of the building was quite old, so it does not meet any accessibility issues. The washroom is downstairs. There was no access to that. The ramp coming in out from the outside, you couldn't open the door to get in. So anybody in a wheelchair was not able to access the building. As well, the air exchange in the building was not satisfactory. So all of those concerns were met at the marina. So that was the intent of moving it over there based on the initial report from the engineer with regard to the roofing and the weight load. So we kind of acted quickly on that to move them over there. Was also addressed in the service delivery review in combining our services so that we would lessen the costs and lessen the burden on staff having to maintain numerous buildings. And with the age of that museum, that was the rationale for that. The fire hall, yes, it's not on our priority for this year or the immediate year because we're still monitoring that. So it's still a high priority facility for us. It was just not identified within this capital budget as being a project that we were going to work on this year because we are monitoring over this period of time to see if there's any changes in the sinking of the building. So that's an ongoing, we do weekly checks of the facility, measurements and so forth that we provide back to the engineers. So we're monitoring that closely. It's not a building that's not on our radar. It's just not something that's part of our capital planning for this year. I think I've addressed all of the questions. I'm not sure, but the 150,000 for the TIC, the information center that's addressed in here didn't cover off some of the costs once the engineer came in to review for the tender process. So instead of replacing some of the windows, the recommendation is to remove the windows and insulate. So providing extra insulation, and then based on the cost of COVID pricing, that's where we came up with the 250. So Ms. Dent, I know she alluded to it in her presentation, but it actually, some of those costs have already been configured into the tender price. So that's why the additional costs are there.
I think that was one of the things I was just curious about the tender because I'm not sure if we usually see those or not, but we didn't see it. So I was just curious as to what was involved in that. Thank you.
We haven't, I haven't actually physically seen it either. I've only been given the information from the engineer, but until council determines whether we're moving forward with the project or not, once it's drafted, then we'll have it in the reading file for council.
Thank you. Councillor Dunbar, Councillor B. Dunbar.
I'm of a mind of not divesting ourselves of the highway property. I realize it is in high demand, but there are commercial properties along there that are for sale that haven't been sold yet. I mean, they may be, and they may be developed, but they haven't been at this time. So, you know, getting into that mix, I don't think we need to divest ourselves of that property. And I think we need to maintain our green spaces and our park spaces. It just makes our community that much more attractive. Yes, it is great property, but we have made excellent use of it at this time. We have our information center there. We did have the museum there. It's a great attraction. We need to maintain our green spaces for the environment, for, you know, maintaining the small town feel that we can grow and prosper and still keep that, be attractive to the people coming through. So yes, I'm not for selling anything on that stretch. The town hall, I think with some renovations, we could make that property accessible. We would probably have to put an addition on it, but if we're tearing down the courthouse anyway, there will be lots of property there to put a small addition on, or, you know, whatever is required to have accessible washrooms. Yeah, the pole barn, yes, let's get rid of that one for sure. Senior center is another thing, unless we can come up with an alternative space for them to use, whether they're charged for it or not charged for it, but have an alternative space for them to use. I don't think we should be getting rid of that either. But no, those are my ideas.
Great, thank you. And are there any questions for Ms. Scott that you need answers from?
No,
Okay. Okay. And Councillor Jay Dunbar.
There we go. The senior center, I don't even know. I'm looking here at our what is it? Excuse me. I want to bring it up. Addendum, administrative buildings, details. Our resolutions that we have here in front of us. I see the, I don't see anything mentioned about the senior center. And I don't know why. I mean, I know, Madam Mayor, you gave your opinion here on what you'd like to see go and what you'd like to see stay, but I'm just looking at the motions that are here in front of us.
Which we will be getting to at the end of everyone's opportunity.
Right, so what you have here is the Town Hall, Public Works, Arena, Marina, and Tourist Information Center. So I'm going to kind of speak upon, I wouldn't have a problem with spending some money, a little money or whatever may be needed in the 10 years projected from Tulloch's. If I remember correctly, we were being told in the day back a few years ago, all of the deficiencies that were coming forward on some of our facilities, as we all knew, but I believe we put it in a notice of motion to have an engineering study done on these facilities, as we have done. And, you know, I'm taking the town hall for an example, which came out with a $38,000 expense. Like, I'm looking at these reports that we paid for, and some of these buildings weren't as bad a shape as we were led to believe they were. As far as the snow load, you know, at the museum, the snow load was bad on all buildings in town. The hospital, the arena, and they have flags up there to keep an eye on the snow depth. And I also believe the library. So, you know, the snow load, it wasn't the big push to get us, our museum from off the highway to over to the marina. I don't buy that. So anyway, I think I'm just gonna, before I say too much, I'll save it for when we bring up the resolutions to have my say on what's being proposed here. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dunbar. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. The other three speakers have already addressed some of my concerns. I don't want to, for the sake of time, reiterate some of them. I do share with Deputy Mayor Summers her concern with regard to the old museum building. We were advised that the building was in bad condition, but the Tulloch engineering report seems to indicate otherwise. And if I can believe the numbers in the Tulloch engineering report, the old museum building would only require $50,500 to repair it, whereas the marina, if those numbers are correct, I'm looking at $156,000 at that building. But obviously that's a move that has taken place, and since we did not have these engineering reports in front of us, we were just kind of, as I say, flying by the seat of our pants on that one, I guess, because we didn't have anything specific to deal with. Like Councillor B.A. Dunbar, I'm somewhat surprised not to see the fire hall on the list of priorities, because as a member of the Protective Services Committee, I certainly believe that we want to maintain our fire hall. And as Councillor J. Dunbar pointed out, it's nice to finally see these engineering reports. I am concerned, though, that we have a lot of fluctuating numbers, and perhaps we can deal with that later. As I read through these reports about 4 weeks ago, prior to the meeting when they appeared in the report from the CEO, I noticed a common theme running through all of them, and it's just simply lack of maintenance. That we have buildings that were constructed sometimes in the 80s or the 90s, whenever they were built. And a lot of the issues are easy to rectify. Replacing a piece of soffit or a bit of caulking around a window. But for some reason, and I'm not privy to the information, some of the basic maintenance items just were never dealt with. Now we're looking at, as Mayor Hagman pointed out, $3 million+ to rectify the problem that we have. And I also agree with the service delivery review that we probably do find that we have more buildings than we can afford to maintain. But I really do think that as we go forward with these reports, first of all, I think it's been said already that asset management is going to become a standing item on the agenda, just like the service delivery review. And I'd like to see that, so we keep coming back and looking at these reports and dealing with the aging infrastructure. But I think that in the future, we need to be more aware that we have a facility that we've invested tax dollars in. And if we're not prepared to do just basic maintenance, then it's going to cost the taxpayers a considerable amount of money in the future. And the analogy I would like to use is my own house. Like if I walk out the door and I see that there's a problem with my eavesdrop, I'm going to fix that eavesdrop. I'm not going to wait for 20 years. So I guess I'm losing my wall now, and my foundation's gone. I've got to do a major repair. It's simply a matter of being aware of the minor problems, so that we don't have to worry about the big problems later. But that'll be a problem for future councils, not for this one. I don't think I really need to say any more than has already been said about these specific reports, but I'm looking forward to the discussion that will take place later this meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Roy?
Oh, sorry, just 1 second. I lost my screen. There it is. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay. I guess I'm in knock over the pole building. That's a no-brainer. There's no sense spending $100,000 when we can knock it over and get rid of it. I don't think it's in use at all at the moment. So I don't think that we need that outdoor storage. Of course, the old courthouse should go right in our downtown core, and it looks terrible. So definitely that should go. Hopefully we can find a new place to house the courthouse. I too would like to see the fire hall bumped up on this list. I say before the tourist information. Now, we've already said we're going to put money towards that tourist information. So let's just get it over with and do the damn thing. I've never been a fan of this, but we passed it. So we should go ahead and do that. Everything else, I mean, you know, like seniors, boy, you're going to have to drag me fighting and kicking before you take that away from my seniors. So that one I wouldn't agree with. As far as divesting ourselves of property on the highway, I think that property is very valuable, but it's also valuable to the town of Blind River. I think that, as Councillor B.A. Dunbar said, we could expand on the town hall at the current location, or we could move to that location, is my add-on to that. And I realize that our current location probably couldn't be built on by anybody but us. So we may be stuck at this location, but I don't have an issue with building onto what we have and getting it accessible that way. So I guess that's everything I had. I don't have any questions. I just had the comments. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roy. Councillor Pastorero.
I'll try to be brief. I just wanted to say that at the beginning of the presentation with the PowerPoint, the first few slides, unfortunately, the tone, just be mindful of the tone that you're giving. It set a negative tone. It was like almost condescending. And I know that wasn't the intent, but just be mindful of the tone of reports. I definitely had some questions similar to some that have been brought up, just the disparity in numbers of the engineering report versus what some of the resolutions and asks are for some of the buildings. And I know CEO Ms. Scott has addressed that, and knowing that accessibility is not on here, knowing that COVID pricing is not on here, that's the explanation. Some of the questions, I guess, are like other councillors have said, is we were led to believe that many of these buildings were just like unsafe, and then to find that those are the buildings that are in the best condition. So for the dog pound that we want to tear down, that was again one of the ones that was in the best condition, the town hall in the best condition, the museum in the best condition. So it's just challenging when you have an engineering report that says one thing, but the agenda and drive is completely different. I definitely would say get rid of the pole barn, get rid of the old courthouse. Those two eyesores will be an excellent opportunity to beautify our town. Yeah, let's see. Just again, just concerns, which has also been brought up about the fact that the maintenance, it seems, is like, for one of them, like the senior center, there's been a window that's been open for years. And seriously, like, we're going to waste money on heat when we could just close the window by replacing it, which a window is not as much money as all the heat loss that's alluded to on this report. All the roofs that are leaking, and just wondering, is there a common theme with these buildings that are deteriorating, that it seems to be the roofing is always in question, and we just had to replace the $1 million roof on the water treatment plant for a shoddy roof that, you know, should have been done correctly the first time. I guess my concerns are that the disparity between the engineering report and what the asks are, and also just concern about the maintenance and of these buildings. I understand that, as alluded to in the first few slides, that councils have been unwilling to put the dollars towards the facilities to maintain them in the best standards. But that's also because the sustainability of the feasibility of our residents being able to take that taxation burden. It's hard, like, we want a lot of things, but we don't have the money or the tax base to do that. So we definitely are going to have to prioritize what we do put our money at. And when we want a commitment instead of an in principle commitment, then I think we need fulsome information and transparency of what, why these asks are the top priority and why the dollar figures are what they are. So I'm definitely willing to commit to making sure our infrastructure is strong. But I just hope that there's further clarity on why some of these are the top 5.
Thank you, Councillor Posterero. Ms. Scott, would you like to respond? I apologize. I should have brought you in after each councillor.
That's okay, Madam Mayor. I think the common theme is the fire hall, for one. So again, I'll reiterate what I addressed at the beginning. We are monitoring the fire hall. There's nothing that we can put towards the fire hall at this time until the engineers have gone through and completely done all of the studies. So they've requested a year of monitoring the facility rather than picking up and moving the facility on unknowns, as we've all heard throughout the meeting, that council wants more information before you make a decision. So that is what the engineers are doing. They're monitoring it because it appears that it may have struck a balance of where it's moving. It's not moving as much now. So we want to have that baseline before we move the fire hall. Absolutely, the fire hall is a priority. The next thing, the dog pound. So that wasn't about the facility being in poor condition. That was about the facility being in a very poor location. So we have a tourist attraction with animals locked up in jail. It doesn't present a very good a welcome to our tourists coming in on their boats to be met with dogs that are you know, encaged in that location. So that was the thought behind that, and that's part of the planning exercise that council will be brought up on. With regard to the old museum, yes, I understand council's concern here, but I think you have to look at the full report, not just look at the end numbers. You need to look at the full report with regard to that building. So we were going on what was presented to us, which you did receive in writing. I didn't make it up. There was concern with the museum and the snow and the stress that was happening inside of the building. So there was definite concern over the artifacts that were in the building, and there was definite concern for the staff that were in the building. And that just brought up all of the other issues that were brought forward from the curator previously with regard to the building. So if you take a look at what it would cost now to fix that building, to make it accessible, so you can't even get anybody in the building who's in a wheelchair at this point, you would have to completely revamp, gut that building and redo that building. So you're looking at a new build, essentially, when you look at it. All of these reports were gone through one by one with the engineers, and these identified buildings are in the top 5 based on the services that council wants to provide, which is why the information building is in there, because in 2019, when we presented it, we did not present the information building as being a top 5, but council voted on that, and council wanted to proceed with the information building being a place of welcoming for people coming into the community, fixing it up so it wasn't the eyesore that it currently is, and making it a year-round facility offering services from an information perspective. So that's why that one is on, on that list. With regard to the general maintenance of buildings, staff have been attempting to do maintenance on buildings over the last 10 years, but we have buildings that are much older than that. So we have windows at the current library that are from 1979. So we are trying to address the deficiencies at the building, but we can only do so many per year based on the budget allocation that we are allotted. We have fixed windows at the senior center. So I believe the window that they are talking about has been fixed, but I have to double check that. But I do believe that that one was fixed, as well as we're having roof leaking problems again. Now, at the risk of sounding, I don't want to cause any cause for concern, but there is a common theme with our roofs and the leaking, and I'll leave it at that. With regard to the town hall, there is some items that are missing from that report, and I did try to get those included in from the engineer. However, the engineer that did write this is currently off on leave, so We weren't able to get those numbers put back in, but I can tell you that the main office, which was a paint shop in the 70s, 60s maybe, that area of the building of the town hall is completely full of asbestos, which is fine as long as we don't disturb it. And then the other issue is that there's absolutely no insulation in the roof and it doesn't meet fire code. So should there be a fire in this building, there's a serious potential for health and safety risks. So that would need to be done. They didn't get me the quote on what that would cost. And that was the piece I was waiting to hopefully have before I present it to council. I don't have that number, but I can tell you that it would involve removing all of our electronic, because all of our IT equipment, everything is run through that ceiling. So we would have to remove all of that, insulate the ceiling, and then have all of it reinstalled. They were to get me that price, but I do not have that price. And I can certainly push harder again to see if they can get me that price. At that point, we had just put it on hold. The other issue was the HVAC. So we did get a quote for the HVAC because we were going to do that as a project. And that was $310,000 to do the HVAC in this building, in the municipal office. So that was one of the other concerns. So we put that on hold because if we're going to do an addition, we should factor that in before we put $300,000 into a building, because the issue is that we have 3 different heating units. So where my office is an addition. The main part is the old paint shop, and council chambers is also an addition. So there's some concerns there. We did ask them about the bathrooms, and based on occupancy, we were hoping to have 1 bathroom that we could, you know, blow out the wall between the 2, and that would create enough space to have the accessible. It's not possible based on the occupancy, and we really should have another bathroom at the back of the building to allow for anyone who's coming to council meetings, when we are able to do so, that they're able to utilize the washrooms and have a public washroom space and have one set aside for staff as well. So those were some of the things that were not addressed within the town hall area. And then again, like I've said before, all of the buildings. The other comment was that there's 156,000 at the marina to spend. And then there's the, it was less money at the old museum. So the rationale there, I would say, is that you still have to fix the museum and you still have to fix the marina. So you would have 2 buildings to fix rather than just fixing the one, to house the one service, which was identified in the service delivery review as being a progressive move from council by doing that and combining services into one building rather than having multiple buildings. That was also raised during the compensation and organizational review, as well as that there's way too many buildings within the municipality of this size. So that was one of the rationale also that was brought forward to council when we were talking about the museum. I understand the nostalgia of the museum, the old museum. I truly do understand that. But from a dollar and cents perspective and how we deliver our services, it's something that council will need to consider. I think I was trying to quickly write these all down, but I think I do have everyone's concerns addressed. Again, numbers will move within these documents. That's a given. Just as the comparison was used by one member of council, when you're looking at your house, you may anticipate in year 5, you're going to redo your roof, but in year 4, your furnace blows up. So there's always those issues that could come to light, but by having a set aside reserve in our facilities, we would be able to pull from those reserves to address the deficiencies. And a lot of the things that are identified in the reports can be addressed through operational budgets. And now that we have the facility documents to follow, we'll be able to ensure that they're checked off and properly maintained. Why they weren't maintained in the past, I really can't comment on that. I don't have enough history with the municipality to be able to address some of those concerns, as some of them have windows from 1979. I can't comment on why that was never upgraded. But if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Councillor Plasterero?
Sorry, I just forgot one thing. So as far as the TIC in the museum goes, I would like to maintain the TIC, but divest ourselves of the property of the museum for development. Like imagine a gorgeous hotel goes in there, or, you know, a grocery store or something that would be great for the town. So I would like to keep the information center, but divest ourselves of the museum portion of that property. And the other thing I was just wondering is the multi-use hub idea still on the table and being investigated? Now that we know that the new school is being built and that the land has been purchased, so there's kind of a commitment to move Eckert over there. Is that still a potential that maybe that space would be available for us?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's what I'm looking for direction from council, how you want me to proceed with the, one of the resolutions is investigate options for the municipal building. So the options would be to add on to the current facility, what those costs would entail, how could we make that work? Or would it be to investigate, once the old courthouse has been demolished, would we look at building a facility there, remaining in this facility until that facility was complete, and then moving over and maybe have it house some more of our services rather than having multiple buildings around the community. Those are all options that would be on the table that we could investigate for high level. I did do some high level discussions with Telek Engineering. Their concern with the Eckert facility is, would we be purchasing someone else's problems, and would we end up in the same situation where we're you know, having to do a lot of work in the facility to make it work, and would it be cheaper to just build new? And that's something that we would want to investigate prior to just putting it forward to council. I would want something in writing from them.
Thank you. Prior to moving on to our motions for this afternoon, I would ask Ms. Dent to bring up the addendum and just maybe point out some highlights on the addendum as it relates to the reserves.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so this was just, this is our preliminary list of reserves at the end of 2020. The ones that would be of most value to this discussion is our facilities reserve, which is currently at $683,414, and possibly our future projects reserve, which is at $426,000. This does not yet include any potential year-end transfers to reserve based on our 2020 surplus. We are in the middle of the audit. So once that is complete, I will have a better idea of what funds are available to transfer to these reserves. We do have a reserve policy that stipulates some of the, where some of the surplus money would be allocated to, specifically our tax stabilization reserve, our facilities reserve, and our future projects reserve. There's some building and fire transfers that are also part of that policy. So those numbers will be coming, but at this point, the two reserves that are most used for what we're talking about are our facilities reserve and our future projects reserve. Does anyone have any questions about that reserve list?
Councillor Roy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering, I see we're at 220K on the fire truck. I'm just wondering, how much further do we have to go on this truck? Like, is 350-ish? Is that close? Any ideas?
Ms. Scott?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So that is a great question, Councillor Roy. I have requested that the fire chief prepare a report for council so that you understand what your legal responsibilities are as a council with replacing the trucks, as well as for our insurance purposes. So we are on the borderline that we do need to replace that fire truck. So it is something that is coming up, and I have requested that he prepare a detailed report as to your legal obligations as members of council, that it should not be deferred much longer.
Well, as a follow-up, thank you, Ms. Scott. As a follow-up, that's what I was going to say, was that we shouldn't keep pushing this away. We should be doing something about it. And I know every year we do something for Public Works, more and more and more. They got all the toys in Sandbox. And the fire truck should be replaced sooner rather than later. And I thought about the same thing. I mean, what if for some reason the thing didn't even start when they had to go to a fire call, and then somebody was to pass away from that? You know, it would be on our heads, right? So that was my question about the fire truck. The other one was one more, Miss Dent, was about the winter snow removal this year was pretty low. I think that do we actually have monies coming back from Public Works that they didn't use? That was for plowing, sanding, and so on and so on.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, yes, that is one of the ones that is part of the surplus policy. And there will be funds transferred to the Winter Control Reserve at the end of 2020. I believe it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $20,000 is where they came in under budget. But like I said, until we have the audit complete, I won't know what the final surplus is. But that's a preliminary number. And just to go back to the fire truck briefly, there will be a proposed additional transfer to the fire truck reserve from the fire department surplus for 2020. And I believe, and I'm talking off the top of my head because I can't remember, but I think it was closer to $400,000 or $500,000 for the truck.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Jay Dunbar, did you have a question? And then followed by Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, actually, Ms. Dent basically answered my questions, because I'd been doing a little research online, and yeah, those trucks are in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $500,000 for a new fire truck.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wells.
Well, thank you, Mayor Hagman. I'm looking at the landfill reserve for the landfill expansion. And at the moment, we have $600,000 set aside for that. I know that our landfill is at and past its capacity. I'm just wondering if you could provide us with an update with regard to the landfill.
We'll defer that to Ms. Scott, I believe.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't really prepared to answer questions on the landfill at this meeting, but I can advise that we are working with Crescent, and there will be something coming to council very shortly for the next stage. We have filled out the latest EC application, so that another step has been taken. We are very close to presenting to council and moving forward to having that application fully reviewed by the MOE, but they do have our latest application, which was submitted, I believe, in January.
Great, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing that report.
Are there any other questions on the addendum? Seeing none, I'll move forward to the motions. The first motion moved by Councillor Jay Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Wells. Be it resolved that council accept the building condition assessment reports from Tulloch Engineering, and that council understands that these reports will be a living document to be adjusted and amended by staff, and that council prioritize the top 5 facilities as Town Hall, Public Works, Arena, Marina, Tourist Information Center. Discussion. Councillor Wells and Councillor Dunbar, I think you had your hands up at the same time, but go ahead, Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I personally would like to see that motion divided so that we are voting on the reports first, and then that we're voting on the priorities for the facilities. But with regard to the wording of the motion as it stands now, I would like to see a change from accept to receive. I think that is the most appropriate language to use there. And that in the second line, and that council, it's a living document. I agree with that. And it can be adjusted and amended by staff with the approval of council to be added to that line. And thirdly, when the time comes to vote, on that motion, if we're not going to divide it, I would like a recorded vote.
Duly noted. Everyone okay with that? No negatives. Councillor Jay Dunbar, you have the floor.
I believe Councillor Wells has addressed some of the changes to the resolution that I wanted to see also. So thank you for stealing my thunder, Councillor Wells. But other than that, with those changes, I'm willing to go along and support this year resolution as it stands right now, with the 5 designated facilities that are listed. As long as we attack and go forward with these facilities as it was recommended by Tulloch Engineering over a 10-year period to address some of these concerns, I don't believe we'll have a problem meeting the remediation of some of these or the fixing up of some of these facilities. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And Councillor Roy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just with regards to Councillor Wells' proposal, I don't know that we can pass something, send it forward, and then say, as long as council can revisit it every time you want to do something. I think that's wrong. We either give them permission to do so, or we don't. I don't know. I've only been at this for a few years now, so just, I don't know. Let me know.
Ms. Scott?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Roy's question. That was going to be my question to council, is that these are operational documents. So you would be accepting the documents based on the fact that you understand that there's things wrong. But if we're going to be changing caulking around a window, I don't necessarily believe that I need, or that staff would come to council each and every time. We would be bringing these through the budget, where council would approve the budget, and we would be addressing and knocking off the operational. What I could suggest is that we present to council quarterly, so through, or maybe not quarterly, but when we have our budget meetings throughout the year, we would bring updates to the plans so that council would be looped into what has been done, rather than the daily operational work of staff, because bringing these plans forward each and every time we're going to change a window, or we're going to change a heating unit, if it's within the budget, council has approved it. So we would certainly follow all of the policies that council has put in place with regard to procurement, with regard to processing and reporting to council, rather than bringing these reports to council every meeting to ask for permission once again, even though it has been approved through the budget process. And that would be the rationale for adopting the reports. If they're large items, absolutely, we would bring them through. I mean, if there's something that fails throughout the year and it's not within the budget, we would definitely bring that to the council table, as we do with all items now. We would bring it forward and suggest that. But these documents will also be utilized by staff when applying for grants. So if a funding application comes up, the funder wants to see these types of reports, so we can submit these reports with that. And this will also be wrapped in with our asset management plan. So these documents, while they're on their own right now, are going to be rolled in with our entire asset management plan and utilize that for day-to-day operation of the municipality.
Thank you. And Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Councillor Roy, for your input. Perhaps we could change that to adjusted and amended by staff, and that council receive regular updates about the changes that are made, something to that effect. Would that be satisfactory?
Yeah, I need you to, so I've got, be it resolved that council accept to receive the building condition assessment reports from Tulloch Engineering, and that council understands that these reports will be a living document, which is what Ms. Scott referred to be adjusted, amended by staff. And I'm going back to you, Councillor Wells, and what did you want to have changed?
Sorry, Mayor Hagman, the first third line of the resolution has been changed from accept to receive, as I
Right.
requested.
Right,
So adjusted, amended by staff, and that council receive regular updates. Would that satisfy the other councilors?
Does that satisfy staff?
Ms. Scott, is that okay?
Yes, I think we, as staff, should be reporting to council with the updates to the reports. These will be documents that we will be able to present to council and show where improvements have been made. That holds everyone accountable.
And duly noted, Councillor Wells. So I have on the second line, and that council understands that these reports will be a living document to be adjusted, amended by staff, and that council receive regular updates. Councillor Pastorero?
Sorry, I just have a quick dumb question. When it says that it's a living document and that it can be adjusted and amended by staff, I'm assuming that that means Tulloch Engineering, as these are engineering reports.
For you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councillor Pastorero, somewhat, but their staff will also be amending these spreadsheets, as I noted earlier, will be part of our asset management plan. So as we complete projects, we will be amending those documents to show that. I wouldn't want to incur engineering costs for those types of work, as well as staff will be able, as we work in the facilities, to identify items that may have been missed by the engineers or that come up newly each year. There could be something that occurs that we would have to add into that document. So we would be doing that work as part of our asset management plan.
Thank you. And Councillor Wells, am I correct in that you wanted a recorded vote for this?
That's correct. I am happy with the modifications that have been made. I did suggest to council that I was asking for have the motion divided, so we vote on the receiving the reports and then we vote on the actual priorities. But it depends on whether council wishes to support my desire for dividing the motion.
Councillor Pastorero?
I think if we're receiving the report, those 5 prioritized buildings are in the report in that order. So I don't know if there would be a need to divide it.
Are there any other comments on this motion? So we have one suggesting that we divide it. Other councillors do you want it divided, or do you want to have it remain the same?
Remain.
Remain the same. Councillor B. Dunbar?
No, I'm okay with the top 5 priorities. My other one was the fire hall as well, and there's an explanation why it's not included, so I'm good.
And Councillor J. Dunbar?
I may be fine with this if we're going to use the recommendations from the Tulloch reports that have been given to us pertaining to these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 facilities are okay with me, so I don't think I'm in favor of splitting them. Just for myself, I'm happy with the way it is.
Councillor Roy?
I'm good with the way it is.
And that it is a recorded vote. I will be checking it off, but I would ask Ms. Scott to call names.
Deputy Mayor Summers,
In favor.
Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar,
In favor?
Councillor Jim Dunbar,
In favor.
Councillor Steve Wells,
In favor.
Councillor Roy,
In favor.
Councillor Pastorero,
In favor.
and Mayor Hagman,
Opposed?
and that's carried.
Thank you. Okay, the next motion is from Councillor Pastorero, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council authorize the CAO clerk to engage the services of a consultant for proposed options for a new town hall facility. Discussion. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I'd just like to ask for a recorded vote on this motion too.
And Deputy Mayor Summers, and then Councillor Jay Dunbar, then Councillor Roy.
I'm just wondering, do we have any thoughts on what kind of cost we're looking at for this, Ms. Scott?
For, I'm sorry, for the
For
information.
sorry, for the consultant. I'm just wondering, because you've already given us a couple of ideas, which I'm kind of interested in as it is. I'm just wondering, the price of a consultant. Seems like we've spent a lot of money on this as it is, and I'm just curious as to what are we looking at for this?
So we could defer this until I obtain a price from Telek Engineering on what they would charge us for this cost. I don't have one off the top of my head from them, but I would imagine just for a very high level, I think we would want to go high level at first and not invest a whole lot of money into doing in-depth reviews of the buildings. We've done that previously with this facility. The recommendation was to move to another facility, and that was not followed at the time. So I think, you know, if we could pull that report back out, so there could be that full report and the options that were there, as well as the costing from 2013 of doing an addition onto this facility. So we could utilize some of those numbers so they weren't starting from scratch, but rather than, you know, engaging at $20,000, $30,000 for engineers, we could, you know, set a cap for a high level of maybe around 10 to 15,000 to look at. But those are just numbers I'm coming up with at this point. So
Because part of the proposal too, because if we were thinking about building new on the courthouse property, like in that area, like what we were saying, like building and then moving over, and then whatever we have to do with this building, whether we take it apart or maybe have some of it, we could use some of it as part of the courthouse. That would be all part of the report then, like that they would cost that out.
yes, so they would do what I'm proposing that we do is a high level report for council with some options. And then have the engineers, you know, determine what the most cost efficient option will be. And then from there would be dollars associated with coming up with the design and the engineering plan for that. But I think at this point, we want a high level of what our options are and what those rough estimates of costing would be. Is it more efficient to add on to this building, or is it more efficient to just start over, is what we're looking for. So perhaps if we have a resolution for that today, we can do something within the budget that we currently have, work with the engineers with our current budget and move forward that way. I can bring forward numbers to council at a further meeting, future meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jay Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam. Oh,
You're good.
okay, I'm on. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. By no means am I interested in passing this resolution. I don't know about the rest of the council, but I'm here because I looked at and I ran on some fiscal restraint. And what has been provided here from from Telex Engineering was a $38,000 retrofit over 10 years to our town hall. Well, I don't mind adding an HVAC, and I don't mind adding a little extra room onto the building. But when you have an HVAC that's $300,000 to $400,000, what do you think a new town hall is going to cost you? Like, I don't get it. I mean, the town hall came in, it's already been shown to us that it's a, better than average building. And I will not support this at all. And I'm going to request a recorded vote on this, Madam Mayor. And I don't want this deferred also. I want this voted on if that's possible.
Thank you, Councillor Dunbar. Councillor Roy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Go, Jim. You always have such passion when you get into these things. I think that no, like all I was going to ask first of all was that we're obviously going to build on if you go ahead and go with a consultant, we're obviously looking at the site we're on right now, because there's going to be two different costs of building. If we go to one area, say we go down to where the tick is, it'll probably cost different than where we are now. So I'm just wondering if that's going to be site specific when you do get a consultant to make up a proposal. Are you following me?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to you, Councillor Roy, it would be site specific to this location. I think when we've reviewed the other areas for the municipal office to move and take up valuable highway commercial location, I don't believe that that's in the best interest of the municipality overall when we're receiving calls on a very frequent basis looking for highway commercial. So I'm not sure that council would want to take that land use up. Further, we know that there is no other build that could go on this current location based on some of the environmental concerns. And then just to Councillor Dunbar's comments, yes, the report says 38,000, but as I noted earlier, they neglected to put the roofing concerns and the asbestos concerns, as well as the accessibility concerns. So we would be looking at having to definitely do major upgrades to the facility to accommodate accessibility, because we cannot be seen as an employer who cannot hire based on accessibility issues. So that was one of the other concerns that was raised by TELUC. So those were the information pieces that may not have been that clear in the report when it was presented.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jay Dunbar.
Well, it was mentioned in the support, about the heat, and TELUC did mention that a spray or drywall could be placed to remediate the heat loss. And as far as asbestos is concerned, probably 3/4 of the houses in this town has it, unless it's friable, and TELUC will know this. There's no concern to asbestos problems at the moment. And even if there was, it can be coated. Whatever problems where you're having breaking or chipping away, that type of stuff can be coated. It can be remediated by companies. But I understand, that this is to engage the service for the proposed options. But as my inner self is telling me, no way.
I would like to see, given that we have accessibility issues, we have HVAC issues, we have asbestos issues, and we have insulation issues at this location. I would like our clerk to look at options for the town hall facility at this location. I would like to see the big, I hear what council's saying, 38.5 for improvements according to the TELUC report, but we're also seeing other expenses that were not included in the TELUC report. I'd like to see a quote on how much it's going to bring this building up to par with accessibility, HVAC, asbestos, and insulation included versus the cost of a new build. I think that council would be very surprised that when you're fixing up old buildings, sometimes it's more in the best interest of the taxpayer to have a new build. So I would personally like to defer this option. And I will ask council for a show of hands for that. I think first Councillor Posterero, followed by Councillor Jay Dunbar.
I know that many are hesitant to defer it, but I'm just wondering, what you're saying is, I like that option because we do have to be accessibility compliant very shortly, right? It's coming up fast. So I'm just wondering if we're not going to defer, if we could amend that there be a comparison between what it would cost for a new town hall versus a renovated town hall, right? So we could see those stark figures and people would be able to see that sometimes it is cheaper to do a new build than it is to renovate.
Thank you, Councillor Posterero. Councillor Jay Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think you'd be surprised to see what the difference would be between expanding the building or building a new one, considering that majority of this council that are sitting here now today have already received a Crescent report on that information. Now, if we have to go forward and have the Tulloch report tell us the same, so be it. But I mean, we were already presented a Crescent report on, and I don't see much difference between the two engineerings, considering that that was 4 years ago, you know, maybe, and today's times. I'm sure the new building's going to be much more expensive, and I'm sure that expanding and building on to the old building will be much more expensive. Money that we don't have. And again, I know, Madam Mayor, you'd like to defer this, but I have to stick to my guns here, and I don't think this is being fiscally responsible here.
So Councillor Jay Dunbar, Councillor Posterero is suggesting that be it resolved that council authorize the CAO clerk to engage the services of a consultant for proposed options for a new town hall facility or a renovated town hall. Is council acceptable to that motion? I'm not seeing any nays. Deputy Mayor Summers, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna, I just wanted to kind of just say that we just talked about old buildings and not doing repairs to them or making them bringing them up to snuff with the times. And when we leave buildings like this, what it costs when it comes time to it's falling down and we have to do it. So I think that definitely we have to look at something. Can we afford it? We have to afford it. It's like anything. We needed to put the new roof on the water treatment plant. Well, we have to find the money. We have to keep our people safe. We have to have this place accessible so that the townspeople can come in and do their business. I think that I would be okay with that, what you just said there, Sally, to Madam Mayor. The new resolution, I would be okay with that. That's all.
Thank you. And we are going with a recorded vote for this, so I will read it again. Councillor Jay Dunbar?
Question.
Yes. Go ahead.
I would put the question to Councillor Summers as to where in the Tulloch report that you see any problems with the building. I mean, you're all reading into future, down the road.
Well, I think
There was nothing wrong with the report from Tulloch. We asked for it and we were given it, and there's no suggestions there as what is on this year resolution.
And I see Ms. Scott had her hand up and Councillor Posterero after.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was just going to note again that accessibility is in the future, and accessibility was noted by Telek Engineering that it was not part of this report, and as was the other safety concerns. So there are going to be some serious consideration through the HVAC, which would actually, through the quote from Telek, said it would be cheaper to do in a new building than it would be to do in this building, because we have 3 separate buildings added onto one with 3 separate units. So they would have to look at how they configure that. So that was the additional costs for the HVAC system. So we are trying to look into the future so that we aren't sitting in the future with a council saying, well, we didn't do it then, so now we have to do this. That was exactly what happened with the courthouse, and now it's falling down. So now we have to spend $300,000 to tear it down, whereas if we would have been putting money into our facilities all along, this wouldn't be the issue or the concern. But just to reiterate, it's the accessibility is the issue with this building, and I think it will be difficult to make the amendments to this building to make it accessible. It's difficult now for us to access the washrooms.
Councillor Pastorero?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess this is directed to Ms. Scott. She had mentioned something about keeping it in the current operating budget, or if not, having a very hard cap. What would be a proposed hard cap, or would it be possible to keep it within the current operation budget like this consultant?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to you, Councillor Pastorero. We do have funds left over from this report, from the building condition report, that we could utilize to work with Telek Engineering. They know the buildings now. They will have recommendations for us. So we will be able to keep it within the current budget that we have allocated.
So seeing no other hands, we are going with a recorded vote on this motion. Be it resolved that council authorize the CAO clerk to engage the services of a consultant for proposed options for a new town hall facility or a renovated town hall. And I would ask Ms. Scott to take over the recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Summers,
In favor?
Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar,
Opposed?
Councillor Jay Dunbar,
I believe I'm opposed to that.
Councillor Wells,
Opposed?
Councillor Roy,
I'm in favor.
Councillor Pastorero,
In favor?
Mayor Hagman.
In favor.
That's carried.
Thank you. Our next motion, moved by Councillor Summers, seconded by Councillor Jay Dunbar. Be it resolved that council approve the demolition of the courthouse and the old Public Works building, and that funds be allocated from the facilities reserve to cover the costs. Councillor Roy?
I'm sorry, I'm just reading, it just says defeated 4-3. It's carried 4-3. You look at your,
Oh,
there's something wrong with the screen.
yes,
The
duly,
eScribe.
duly noted on eScribe. Thank you.
It's
there any-
also, it's missing a mover as well.
That was moved by Councillor Pastorero, seconded by Councillor Roy. On to the next motion, moved by Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Jay Dunbar. Be it resolved that council approve the demolition of the courthouse and the old Public Works building, and that funds be allocated from the facilities reserve to cover the costs. And Councillor Wells, Councillor Dunbar, Councillor B. Dunbar.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
No.
No? Councillor Wells?
I believe I'm a mover on this, so I guess I get to speak to this first.
No, Deputy Mayor Summers moved it, Councillor Jay.
Right,
Dunbar.
and I second it.
Right, yes.
And I didn't hear Paula Summers, Miss Summers' name. I heard Councillor Wells addressed by you. So I have my hand up. I'd just like to say something. That's all.
Oh, yes, please, go ahead.
I'd be more than happy to support this here motion that's in front of us to get rid of the eyesore that's behind our beautiful town hall.
I think that's what I heard everyone say in their overviews. Counselor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I thought Councillor Dunbar was going to say what I am about to say. Since we are looking at a significant demolition cost, I'd like a recorded vote on this one as well.
Duly noted. Is there any other comments? Seeing none, Ms. Scott, would you go forward with the recorded vote?
Deputy Mayor Summers,
In favor?
Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar,
In favor?
Councillor Jay Dunbar,
In favor.
Councillor Wells,
In favor?
Councillor Roy,
In favor.
Councillor Pastorero,
In favor.
and Mayor Hagman,
In favor.
and that is carried.
Thank you. And on to the next motion, moved by Councillor B. Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Wells. Whereas council approved the tourist information business plan to proceed in 2021 during the council update and vision planning meeting in the fall of 2020, and that engineering quotes for the upgrades have come in at $250,000. Therefore, be it resolved that council authorize the transfer of the required funds from the facilities reserve. Discussion. Councillor Jay Dunbar? Your mute's on.
I guess the question to Ms. Scott was, would be, $250,000, is that within the 10-year parameters that they suggested? The $150,000 that it was going to cost us? But since with these newer upgrades, it's going to be $250,000. But that's over 10 years, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this proposal would be to complete the Tourist Information Center in 2021 and have it fully complete and fully retrofitted.
Okay, thank you.
And are there any other comments on this? Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I'm going back to the previous council when we passed a resolution to take on this project, and we were going to finance it over 3 years. And I think, I don't have the data in front of me, but I think at that time, the engineering firm gave us an estimated cost of about $130,000. Initially about $30,000 to replace the windows. And then we were going to do, I think, the siding and then the roof and the siding. Doesn't matter. And now we were told in the Tulloch report, I wrote the number down, but I've lost it. I think it was $150,000 to do the renovation. And now we're looking at a motion that's suggesting that we spend $250,000 on the $100,000 increase. Now, I'm a believer, as Councillor B.A. Dunbar pointed out, that it's nice to have a presence on the highway as people are coming into town. And I also appreciate Mayor Hagman's earlier comment about that probably we should divest yourself of this facility because not, as she has said in the past, not too many communities even have this type of building anymore. And I am aware that we are renting space in the building, that we have plans to use it as a satellite gift shop for the museum. But I'm starting to struggle a little bit with a $100,000 increase for a building that 4 years ago I was told was only going to cost about $130,000 to renovate. So I'm just surprised that it's escalating so rapidly. And I'm not exactly sure that we can blame the pandemic, even though I do understand that materials are becoming more costly.
And I believe that Ms. Dent has an answer for you, Councillor Wells.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. If council goes back to the 2019 capital budget, there was a 3-year proposal to fix the Tourist Information Center, which actually came to a total of $241,000 for the 3 phases was a total of $241,000. So we're not far off with 250 at this point for the whole project.
Thank you, Ms. Denton. I believe that Ms. Scott has some additions as well.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was just going to comment on what Ms. Dent did bring forward, that in 2019, that was the proposal. And I believe the longer we defer it, the more expensive it's going to get. It's not going to get cheaper as the years go by. If council wishes to proceed with this facility, this is the cost to do the upgrades, and to complete it all in 1 year would allow you to move forward.
Thank you. And Councillor B. Dunbar?
My only question would be, I am not against improving the Travel Information Center. I think it's a wonderful idea. My question is, why all of it in 1 year when some of those funds could be used for the low-hanging fruit in, you know, at the marina and the arena for caulking around the windows and that type of thing? Spread the money out so that we're doing something on all of these facilities rather than, you know, the big push to do one building. I don't know why, what has happened that there's a big push to have all of everything addressed in 1 year.
Through you, Madam Mayor, when we had the engineers come down and take a look this over the winter, the siding is completely finished on the sides of the one side of the building. The roof is leaking and the roof is finished, as are the windows. So we can pick apart which ones we want to do, but we're still going to be left with either poor insulation on the sides of the building, or we're going to be left with leaking windows or leaking roof. So the thought was, and we can certainly split it up if that's the wish of council, but the thought was to complete one project, have it operational and efficient with heating and for heat loss, and then move on to the other buildings. But if council wants to pick either the roof or the windows to do, that is possible. I would suggest then we do the roof for sure, and I would suggest the windows because they are leaking.
Councillor Postrero?
Okay, now I'm just trying to get everything straight. So Ms. Dent has said that this was already in our budget over a 3-year phase, which came in at $240,000. People have been advocating that this building be brought up to par, and this is the price. The only thing I guess I have a concern with is the words in the motion, because the engineering quotes aren't $250,000. The engineering quotes are $151,750. So would we need to amend that to say the engineering quotes are this, and there would be additional money up to $250,000 needed to fully bring this building up to code and efficiency?
So through you, Madam Mayor, some of the roofing issues and the siding issues were not part of it, and the pricing that they had put in there was the pre-COVID pricing. So the prices have gone up. So when they were putting together the package for the tender and they went out to contractors to obtain pricing, this is where they came in at, was around the 250 mark. They suggested that that would be an appropriate budget amount to complete the project all in 1 year. It goes back to with me saying that we need to remember that this document is a living document, because even though we're being shown these numbers today, something could happen tomorrow that will increase those numbers. So we have to be cognizant of that when we're preparing budget, that pricing doesn't always come in at what is suspected, as we found out with the water treatment plant roof when we were going to tender for that project.
Councillor J. Dunbar, followed by
Thank you.
Councillor Roy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's been a long go over this Tourist Information Center, and completing it all at once was probably the furthest belief that I was going to see ever happen. I believe we at one time thought that there was a recommendation on to divest ourselves of this building, and I believe majority of council supported keeping the building. And here's the chance, to complete an actual project that council stuck up for, at one time. But I do have one question for Ms. Scott, is that when we do these repairs, and I do see the amount of the upgrade to 250, does that provide us with replacement, let's say replacement of the roof with the similar shapes that are on there? Or, like, I need to know if we're going for apple of replacement and fixing to recommend, an increase of $100,000.
Madam Mayor. That's a good question, Councillor Dunbar. The answer to that is no, we're not going to be replacing apples for apples. We are going to be replacing for a more efficient, longer lasting product. So the roofing that is on there now did not last, and we want to ensure that we're putting a product up there that is going to last a longevity, so that our asset management plan can properly reflect and look, gain some ground when we do these repairs and upgrades. So we will be looking for the most cost efficient, but most effective long-term gain for the municipality, that we're not having to go back and replace roofing after 5 years. We're going to look for the most efficient way to upgrade the buildings, which is why there's some slight increases, because we want to add additional insulation on the outside of the building prior to putting insulation on, so that because the building was not designed to be a 4-season building, it was a 3-season building. So if we're going to have a 4-season operation, we need to upgrade that heating so that we don't have a loss and we aren't heating the outside. So we're keeping into a green project at the end of the day.
Thank you, Katie. That makes sense there then.
Councillor Roy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to say, I heard the comment that why are we doing it all in 1 year? I think we might as well get it done. If we don't, say we just do the roof this year, we could have further deterioration in the walls. We could have further deterioration in the entire building. I wasn't one who was wanting to have this building repaired, but now we're at this point. Let's get it done. Let's move on to the next project, and then we have our life expectancy of this building will be what, 25 years, 30 years, whatever it is. And it can start at zero, not, oh, the roof was replaced 30 years ago but the siding and windows were replaced 10 years ago. No, it'll be basically a new building as of 2021. So I think that that's the way we should go ahead and have it done and move on to the next building. Thank you.
I would like to have a recorded vote. As council knows, I am not in favor of improvements to the Tourist Information Center. The tenant that is in the Tourist Information Center can go to another building. It is not the town's responsibility to find a location for the snow riders. And we have only used this building in the history of the town during the May 24th to Thanksgiving Day weekend, with the exception of the time when the Blind River Development Corporation occupied it. I look into the future as well, and I see that people are using apps more on their phones to be looking at tourism potential in municipalities. I don't like the idea that we have consignment at the Tourist Information Center. I feel it takes away from our merchants in the downtown core. And I feel that tourism can be provided through our museum staff, and that by putting money into this building takes away from the other 18 buildings that we have to put money into. So that's my reasons for wanting a recorded vote. And Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I agree with Councillor Roy that this was an issue that was discussed by the previous council. And I think we've been discussing this for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And since we are going to be drawing money from the facilities reserves, we seem to have enough money in that account. It'd be nice to fix something. So as Councilor Roy said, I guess this is the time, right?
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Summers.
I just wanted to make a comment that as well, when we were looking at it in previous years, if you recall, when we had the, just one second. When we had the service delivery review, the public meeting, a lot of people came to that meeting thinking that it was a Save the Travel Center meeting, if you recall. So at that time, the people had spoken, and that is why I will be voting in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Ms. Scott, if you're ready for your recorded vote. Oh, Councillor Postrero, do you have something you'd like to say?
I just had a quick question. So with the planning of these renovations and the completion date, does that completion coincide with the renewal of Snow Plan's lease? Because I can't foresee that being economically feasible if we keep the rent that low for the tenant, spending $250,000 on a building.
For you, Madam Mayor, I can certainly look at the lease, and when it does come due, we can certainly bring it forward to the Corporate Services Committee for review prior to renewing the lease.
And without further ado, we will go forward with a recorded vote, and Ms. Scott will take over the recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Summers,
In favor.
Councillor B.A. Dunbar,
In favor?
Councillor J. Dunbar,
In favor?
Councillor Wells,
In favor.
Councillor Roy,
None of you guys thought you'd ever hear this in favor. Okay,
Councillor Postrero,
In favor.
Mayor Hagman,
Opposed.
and that is carried.
Thanks, everyone. Last but not least, moved by Councillor Postrero, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council adjourn this public meeting at 5:12 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.